So we have a number of dedicated staff members here today on the call that contributed to this webinar in various capacities. On the left, we have our presenters, and on the right are our support staff who are on call during this webinar. We feel the content we're sharing in the webinar is important, and we really appreciate your time here. I'll go over the agenda for our webinar. There's a few agenda items we wanted to cover today. I will start out by presenting on the RESNET standard updates. Doyle will be presenting on professional development, including combustion safety testing and RaterFest. Flannagan will be demoing the Partner Center, showing a few slides as a reminder and how to log in and access this great resource. I will continue with some quality assurance findings, some recent findings to share with you all. And then we'll conclude with Steve Byers with business opportunities. We feel there's something here for everybody, and we're excited about this new initiative and glad you're here to join us. So I'm going to jump right in here with RESNET changes. HERS raters are agents of change in our communities. You may not feel like it in the day-to-day grind, but we do recognize and appreciate your efforts as a driving force for change. Some of us get this surprised look when we're unaware of the changes and get the shock of change look. Sometimes this happens quickly, sometimes it's gradual, but we try here at Energy Logic to work through a variety of forms of communication to keep you in the know. We're looking to improve our process so that you can improve yours. Email can be effective, but we all get so busy and inundated with emails. Training can be the most effective way to improve with professional development. We tried with our technical forums, and it's a quick way to get information out and also share and bounce ideas. But there's a gap oftentimes with complicated changes where it doesn't fit in training, it doesn't fit in email, and that's where we think these webinars will be a great resource to you all. We think this webinar will be a great way to bridge those gaps to communicate those complicated changes where online trainings or email aren't a good fit. So jumping right into the updates of the RESNET standard. So RESNET and Energy Star entered an agreement earlier at the beginning of this year. That agreement went into effect. Energy Star became the first official energy efficiency program, or EEPS is what we call them. The QA will be the same as RESNET QA. You may not notice much of a difference, but there's some additional requirements that we'll need for submittal for your files. For file QA, that requires a review of completion of your checklists. So we'll continue to require the submittal of these checklists. We'll not issue printing on labels or certificates until all of those checklists are in hand. So make sure your submittals for Energy Star are complete with those checklists. Otherwise, we will not be able to process that. As far as field QA, 1% of all homes certified will require Energy Star field QA from the provider. This will help everybody involved if we can ensure access to homes for meeting this intent. If access is a concern, please do notify us in advance, preferably 2 to 4 weeks, so that we can ensure the completion of QA. So if you've got a project in queue, it's best to just give us a call, let us know, so that we can try to accommodate in advance. There is a low volume exemption allowed by Energy Star. It is for raters with less than 100 ratings. However, we do need to do on-site QA in that case on the next available Energy Star house. So it still poses the same hurdles the next time around, so it's best to do diligence and try to communicate this requirement to your builders. The exemption does not apply to RESNET QA, so we still have to do RESNET QA every year if you do a rating, So it's best to just try to line up the field QA for Energy Star homes whenever possible. Another change in the RESNET standards that went into effect this year is the QA of your templates for sampling. Also, those are called projected worst case ratings or template files from plans. But those are the ratings that are used for sampling, and we are required to do 100% file QA on those template ratings. We will require the submittal of template files before sampling begins, and this is really in your best interest so that any mistakes that are found in the file QA can get corrected earlier and it won't impact the compliance if you can make those recommendations to your builder in advance. Also, when a builder is selected or a building is selected for on-site QA, the end units from the top and bottom floors must be tested. So just another thing not to really be too concerned about. I think access there is not as much of a concern, but we would, for our site QA, need to meet that intent. Another change here that went into effect, one of the 3 probationary ratings for new raters must have a side-by-side review from the QAD or trainer. So we'll have to make a site visit to get any new rater certified. So if you hire a new rater, it would be best to discuss a certification plan in advance so that we can work out your most cost-effective solution. We've got a number of options, and just give us a call and we can walk through that. Rating field inspectors also have probationary ratings. You're required to submit the results of your 5 mentored ratings with the rater that they work with. So they mentor to become an RFI, they mentor with a rater, and it's requiring 5 ratings that you will need to submit the results of to Energy Logic for review. And the list of documents that we require for probation review are the same as rater certification. So it's crucial that we verify your system of communication between your RFI and your rater is sufficient. And this is an opportunity also for you to be confident in the work of the RFI. Ultimately, it's the rater's responsibility for the work of the RFI. So all of these changes lend more credibility to the RESNET HERS system, and we think in the long term that they will strengthen the future of our industry. I'm going to hand over to Scott Doyle here to talk a bit about professional development.
Thanks, Glenn, and hello, everybody. So I'm talking about the certification update. This applies to both the rater certification and the rating field inspector certification. So I've listed this kind of in frequently asked questions. These are some of the things I regularly hear people confused about. So I thought I'd cover a few of those with regard to RESNET's new combustion safety testing standards and how that applies to the update of your certification. So the big key here is the deadline. That is January 1st of 2015. All existing HERS raters and rating field inspectors must complete the testing and in some cases a training requirement in order to retain their current certification. This is a really common misconception here. Raters are not required to conduct combustion safety tests on all homes. You won't find CAS testing in Appendix A where it describes the minimum rated features of a home. Instead, RESNET is just updating the certification as it applies to the minimum knowledge and skill set that we have to have as raters and field inspectors, so that if we are in a situation where combustion safety testing is warranted, we have the ability to do so. Now, if you're a BPI building analyst, you are not exempt from the requirement. However, you can be exempted from field training. So you'll still have to pass both of the exams, but you won't have to take field training if you currently hold the BPI building analyst certification. So let's talk about those 2 CAS tests. There's a 25-question written exam and a simulation exam, both. You've got to pass both of those, whether you're a building analyst or not, in order to meet this new requirement. So the simulator operates like a computer game. You should plan on spending some time in the simulator to get used to how to navigate it and how to use things like its tools and its clipboard. Now the simulator has its pros and cons, as opposed to putting people through an actual field exam the way BPI does. But it does have some strengths that I'd like to talk about briefly. Passing this simulator is going to mean that you're demonstrating mastery of the process. You know the order, all of the steps, and you can make the correct interpretations from the testing results that the simulator gives you. And here's a strength, I think, of the simulator. Unlike trying to do this exam in a real home, with the simulator we can put each and every student through dozens of different scenarios. Some of them would be dangerous to put an actual student through in a real live home. So we can put folks through those kinds of scenarios in the simulator and ensure that you know how to make the correct interpretations based on different situations. Field training and the simulator practice is available through Energy Logic Academy. We're offering the online portion as an open enrollment self-paced course. So you could enroll in it right now and have access to the online portion of the course. If you're not a BPI building analyst, you would then complete the online course and then enroll into one of our field training dates. And we're planning to offer that field training at least once a month through the rest of the year, including some out-of-state locations in markets where we perceive there to be high demand. You can receive professional development for this training if you complete both the field and the online portion, what we're calling on our website the Online Plus one-day field training. And it's approved for 12 professional development credits. So if you want more information on the combustion safety testing options, training dates, etc., you can visit energylogicacademy.com. I haven't covered here any of the reasoning why combustion safety was added to the minimum knowledge and skill sets, but RESNET recently hosted a webinar on that topic, and I've included a link here where you can go to their Vimeo site and view that webinar since they recorded it. We'll be sending out these links to folks that attended the webinar here at the end of the day. So I want to move on to RadarFest. By the way, we are planning to host combustion safety testing field training in the days leading up to RadarFest. You'll see that as one of our training dates on the website. But I want to cover the top 10 reasons to attend RadarFest 2014. We've located RadarFest this year just 10 miles south of Estes Park at a place called Covenant Heights, which I visited recently and I'm really excited about. You know those cash bars at conferences where you pay like $8 a bottle for domestic? This is not one of those. You can fill her up and it's on the house. This year's RadarFest is especially family friendly. We've offered an option now where you can add $250 to your registration price. It allows you to bring a spouse or caretaker and up to 2 kids. And we're designated one of our buildings as a family-only space so that you will be kind of physically separated from some of the noisier and later partying folks. The venue this year offers all kinds of outdoor activities, including what's pictured here, a zip line. They have mini golf, hiking options, campfire rings, basketball, volleyball, frisbee golf, etc. It's going to be a wonderful time, and I'm really looking forward to kind of our out-of-session time as well. But the sessions themselves are going to be great this year. We have a host of experts presenting this year, all of whom you can listen to at national conferences. We've invited some of our favorite people from those conferences, including Ben Adams, Stephen Davis, David Roberts, and Bruce Manclark. RESNET Executive Director Steve Baton is also going to be on hand to address our audience during dinner. And of course, we expect to offer the usual variety of CEUs, including 12 RESNET Professional Development credits. Meals and lodging are included, as always, at RaterFest. This year we're offering 2 different options. It's $375 for the bunkhouse, $325 if you're camping, and of course all of your food and drink is provided from Friday dinner all the way through Sunday's lunch. One of our favorite times during RaterFest is Rater Jams, when we have folks bring their own instrument, and music and camaraderie around that is one of our favorite things about the entire event. And of course, it wouldn't be RaterFest without Rater Olympics. So this year we're planning to incorporate some of the new on-site resources such as a zip line, ropes courses, etc. So you don't want to miss that. Our housing variety this year includes traditional tent camping, bunkhouses, and platform tents. So we're offering all kinds of options here, and we've got more space than ever. What was true during the first RaterFest in 2009 is still true and has been every year since. It's the people who really make this a great conference. So we really hope you'll attend and be part of this ongoing event, one of our favorite times of the year. And if you need one more reason to attend RaterFest, how about a discount? We'll be sending out this coupon code, or you can take it down now. It's good for 10% off for any Rater partners who have attended this webinar, and then follow up and attend RaterFest. We'll see you in September. I'm going to turn it over now to a poll question, which Hannah's going to post for us. I'll give you a couple of minutes to respond.
All right. So it looks like the results of that quick poll question there, which conferences are we planning to attend this year? Good to see that RaterFest is the top one there that people are planning on attending. And for those who didn't click RaterFest, we hope to see you there this year or next year. That works better for you.
All right, we have one more poll question.
Yeah, I guess I'll introduce this one. This is Tom Flannagan here. We are just about to go through quickly some stuff on the Rater Partner, the Partner Center, and the Tech Forum. And this is something that we're thinking about turning into a app-type deal so that you would be able to access it a little bit easier from your phone. I'm not sure if everybody uses the Partner Center and the Tech Forum currently, but we're hoping that that an app might help people access it in the field and maybe use it a little bit more. So.
All right, you got a few more seconds. We're about to close the poll. All right.
So it looks like an app will maybe increase people's use of the Tech Forum and the Partner Center. So let's see if maybe a little more info on it will help you guys find it more useful also. So we're just going to quickly run through the Partner Center, which is a resource that we've put together, which brings together a lot of useful items for you guys when you're out doing your ratings. The biggest one is probably, it ties into the continuing education stuff that Scott was just talking about, with some online courses and also some course previews for some of the in-person and some of our larger trainings. But there are some online courses there that are quick and easy to pick off, and that you can use to gain some CEUs if you find yourself needing some as the years are coming to a close. And we also have a number of technical resources and business development resources as well. So I meant to put the link up here, but you can always access the Partner Center. We created sort of a quick and easy link. You can just go to nrglogic.com/partnercenter, and that'll direct you to our main page of the Partner Center. And if you do need help remembering your login info or remembering passwords or any help like that, you can contact Marnie, who is always ready and able to help, and you can just reach her at marnie@nrglogic.com. So I wanted to also bring to your attention the Tech Forum, which is a great interactive tool that resides on the Partner Center, and we've been happy to see that a lot of people have been using it recently. It's a good opportunity to post a question to all of the rater partners out there, something that you might drop in an email to Glenn or Scott or me, but something that you think others might benefit from as well. And a lot of times, if we receive email questions, we'll often repost them to the Tech Forum along with our answers, so that all may benefit from a question. Which, if one partner had it, then it's likely that there were many others out there who are also wondering similar things. So you can see that this is a simple forum to add a new discussion topic, and you can see that Glenn and I have been in there recently, kind of going through and monitoring and making sure that questions are answered, and that everybody has the resources that they need. So this is also up at the top. You can also see that there's a search box there, which is helpful if you have a question that you're thinking about asking or adding a discussion. You should type it into that search box first and just see if anybody else has asked it, and see if there's a previous discussion that might help illuminate an answer for you. So it's a great tool, and we're hoping that you guys will use it. And this is something that I think would work really well for an in-field app, so that when you're out in a home and you have a question and you don't have an easy way to get that answered, this would hopefully, the searchable Tech Forum would hopefully give you an opportunity to get your answer right there on the spot, and you wouldn't need to follow up on anything afterwards. So that's our overview of the Partner Center and the Tech Forum, and now there is another poll question, which will be popping up now.
Looks like a majority of you are using the Partner Center in some form or fashion, so that's good to know there. For those of you that don't, please check out our link. We're going to send out a link to the Partner Center and an email to you all as well. Check it out when you get a minute. I think there's a lot of good stuff there. This is Glenn Pease again, in case you don't recognize my voice. I'm going to move on here to trends from our quality assurance. I think this is where there's some things to be gained and learned from our quality assurance reviews. We polled our QADs and came up with the top 5 common mistakes in our quality assurance reviews. So in no particular order, we've got floors on or above grade. This is the input and rim rate there on one of the very first screens. And we'll talk about slabs with a walkout basement and some common mistakes there. We'll also talk a bit about conditioned crawl space slabs. Library copy errors is another common mistake. And then talking about blower door testing adjustments, which is a recent change this year we'll discuss in detail. So the first one here, this slide will be a subject of our next poll. It's sort of a quiz of sorts. So pay close attention here. We'd like to see what you all learned from this. Number 1 in this example here for the question, on the left, the number 1 building is a 3-story multifamily building. Each unit in this building is a 1-story unit, and we'll be modeling this unit for a HERS rating. The second in this poll example, number 2, is a single-family home with a walkout basement, and we'll be modeling that in rim rate as well. So we'll pull up the poll question here. Please take a moment to answer the poll and see what you all think. So again, this is the number of stories on or above grade. So for the apartment building, how many stories on or above grade, and for the walkout, how many stories on or above grade, which is the most correct answer. This is a tricky question. This is like one you'd get on the RESNET exam, I think.
To make sure it's clear that we're talking about the top level apartment.
I don't know. All right, I think we'll close the poll here in just a couple seconds. We got a pretty good mix here between calling the apartment 1 story and the walkout 2, or calling the apartment unit 3 stories and a walkout 1, and apartment 3 stories and a walkout 2. So pretty good mix, and then none of the above. That's good. Those are tricky sometimes. The correct answer is the first one. Number 1 is an apartment that's 1 story, and number 2 is a walkout basement that's 2 stories. Multifamily unit ratings is something to keep in mind. They're at a unit level. So what you tell rim rate is the level type, and that's a separate input. And you tell rim rate whether it's a top, middle, or lower unit. So that's how it knows what story it's on. But for the floors on or above grade, it wants to know the number of stories for that unit. So it's not the whole building that it's looking for. So number 1 should be modeled as 1 story. For the walkout basement, the basement is exposed on one end, and this is for a reminder here. This input is primarily used for infiltration modeling. So it's looking for stack effect here, and it's at the unit level with the multifamily buildings. But for the walkout basement, the basement is exposed on one end, so it counts as a floor on or above grade. It's exposed to the elements is another way to look at that. So the second building here should be 2 stories on or above grade. Thanks for everyone's response there. So one of the number 2 common mistakes in our poll of QADs is the modeling of 1 slab for walkout basement. So we're talking about a walkout basement again. And this comes straight from the rim rate help file, this depiction here. Walkout slabs typically have one slab, but there are two distinct sections here, each with their own thermal dynamics. So modeling the walkout with one slab mainly impacts compliance, where the walkout or the on-grade portion requires insulation along this exterior line here, the red line shown above in this depiction. And this primarily impacts code and programs, but it also does impact the HERS index. The RIM help file is actually helpful here if you need a reference. Check it out when you come across a slab walkout, or call us, shoot us an email if it's not something you commonly see and need some guidance on. We're always open and available to help through some of these technical questions. I also think our SketchUp training and the scripts that come with our SketchUp training make this task much easier. It's much easier to find, and it inputs the data as you would, or exports the data as you'd import that into rim rate. So I would check that out if you see walkout basements a lot. So our number 3 common mistake is in condition crawl spaces, and this is the subject of our next poll question. Both of the crawl spaces here are considered condition crawl spaces. There are no vents, and there's insulation along the walls. So how do you model these in rim rate? So we'd like to poll everybody to see what you think. All right, we're going to close the poll here in just a couple seconds. Thanks for everybody's patience and everybody's response here. So it looks like a lot of you, the most common answer was the correct answer. So that's great. It's the first answer here, and it's a slab that's modeled both on the slab screen, and then you also have a framed floor input on the framed floor screen. Both of these are modeled in rim rate. It's a relatively new requirement in rim rate. You get an error, actually, if you don't model the framed floor over the conditioned crawl space. And it's an adiabatic floor. I know we've kind of been taught in our training to ignore those adiabatic floors, but that's a change in rim rate, and this drives reference home calculations, so you do need to input both. As for the slab, regardless of whether there's a slab poured in the crawl space or not, we still model a slab. Now the ground acts as very much like the slab. It's a thermal mass with the same thermal characteristics as the ground. So for the ground floor of your crawl space, you do model a slab. And that way rim rate can calculate the heat transfer to the ground there. Great answers there, appreciate that. Moving on to number 4 is the copying errors that we've seen. As with anything, copying anything and adjusting that, it lends many opportunities for us to make mistakes if you're not careful and adjusting everything you need to. So when you copy it, you have to change everything that you're supposed to. We've seen a number of copying errors recently. Even something as simple as not changing the fuel type on a water heater when you create a new library or you copy an existing one, this can make a significant difference. So if you have any questions when you're copying a library or you need to create a new one, don't hesitate to send us a screenshot, and we will be happy to review that library for you. We'd hate to have to lock our libraries and require that you use our library set. I don't think that works for either of us, but we've seen enough of these errors that we may have to consider that. So please do be open with us when you're copying and creating new libraries and you don't understand it. Please send that for our review. Last year, RESNET standard, the testing standard, changed its procedure to include adjustments for a few factors. This includes altitude adjustments, temperature adjustments, and also adjustments for pressure swings. So there are criteria for exemptions that are written in the standard that allow you to be exempt from these adjustments. But our QA from last year, we found this to just be too complicated and too confusing. So we will be instituting a new requirement that you submit a software report for your blower door. This is something we'll announce later this summer. And I wanted to go over your pathways for compliance here. That way you could test it out, see what works for you. But at some point we are going to require that you use the software adjustments for your blower door testing. So 3 paths for compliance here, and I'm going to go through and weigh out the pros and cons of each. We have a mobile app, which you can use on your mobile devices. That's one of the options. Also, there are 2 software options where you can use your computer to make those adjustments. There's a manual software input and also use of the automated software. So I'll start out with the mobile app. That's certainly the most convenient, I think, for everybody, and that's one of the pros is that most all of us have smartphones or tablets, so it's very convenient, and that's true with these mobile apps for blower door testing. However, there are a number of things to consider here in weighing out the pros and cons. The apps can only be used for single point, so if you require a multi-point test, it will tell you that your test is not valid, and then you're kind of stuck out there. You got to get your results for the multi-point test and go back to your computer and end up using your computer to comply. The manual inputs are on a smaller screen, so it's a little more challenging to plug those inputs into the app. And fat finger syndrome on the mobile app is a real issue with more room for error here. There are also some common pitfalls I'll discuss later when it comes to baselining at the gauge and on your app or your computer. And last but not least, another con to consider here with the app is that the report has to be emailed to be shared and saved on your computer. So it could result in a process, a little clunky process there to get your report saved. So that's the mobile app, the pros and cons there. And your second option for compliance here would be the use of the software on your computer. And there is an option for manual input of those results. The manual input option might be preferable for those of you who have laptops that you can employ in the field, but maybe you don't have all the controls to do the automated test. It may also be a preferable option for those of you who don't have laptops, but you do your data entry back at the office. You could do your blower door data entry at the same time. So let's look at some of the pros and cons for the software inputs. So one of the pros is that you all have computers. You only need a free software program to download to your computer to utilize that. So that's definitely a pro. You don't have to go out and buy another device. But unlike the app, it does both single point and multi-point tests. So you can be compliant even on those windy days where you have high pressure fluctuation. you can still be confident that you'd be compliant. A few of the cons to weigh out here. It does take more time to manually input the results than it would if you were to use the automated test, which I'll talk about here shortly. There's more room for data entry error again without having that automation. You'll need a computer in the field, or another option here would be that you use forms to be referenced for your data entry back at the office. But that would duplicate your data entry, basically, so it takes a bit more time. And our favorite and most recommended option for any company here is the automated option. There's a lot of pros and less cons with using the automated system. It's very easy to use. There's a step-by-step on-screen instruction that walks you through the whole process, which makes it very easy to use. The automated data collection makes it quicker than the other options. The computer thinks quicker than us sometimes if it's running properly, so it can be quicker. It is a bit dummy-proof, from a lack of better terms. They have warnings and errors along the way, so it does make for less pitfalls when doing the testing. And then if there are pressure swings when you get your baseline, you, again, would be confident that you can comply with the RESNET standard. There are a few cons to consider here. You would need a computer in the field to run the automated setup, but if you already have one, you might as well use that for the blower door too. Or if you've considered bringing one in the field and you just haven't made the leap, this might be a good time to do so. So you need cables. There are 2 cables that are required to set up where your gauge and computer and your fan controls can all communicate together, but that's a minor hurdle. I think those cords and cables are very cheap. So if you use the Energy Conservatory equipment and you have a DG700, you just need these 2 ports. You can buy them at an electronics store. You can buy them from the Energy Conservatory, buy them from Radio Shack for that matter. But it's pretty inexpensive to get you set up with the automated system and have confidence in your results. RetroTech uses Ethernet cables. I'm less familiar with RetroTech, but my understanding is you just need the Ethernet cables to connect to your computer, and those are also cheap. So here's a quick setup here of what you would need to get connected to use the automated system. And this is, again, the Energy Conservatory devices here. So you need a 9-pin serial cable to USB cable. So that connects at the top of your gauge with the 9-pin, and then the USB connects to your computer. So your gauge can speak to your computer, essentially. And then an auxiliary stereo cable. Some of you may have this already in your kit. It may have came with it, but you can connect that port to the fan control on your controls for your blower door. If you don't have the fan control, some of the older versions don't have that. Don't worry. You can still connect the gauge to your computer, and you just manually adjust the fan power to whatever pressure you're needing. So there's still a semi-auto option that you can use there, which is still better than manually plugging your gauge readings into that software. So I'd like to cover a couple of common pitfalls we found in use of the app and in use of the manual software option. So if you're not convinced in using the automated system yet, let me tell you a few of the pitfalls. If you're inputting baselines into the software, do not baseline at the gauge. You'd be double baselining. So you're telling the computer program what the baseline is, and you're telling your gauge at the same time what the baseline is. And they don't know, they aren't speaking to each other at this point, so they don't know that you've already baselined at the other end of the calculation. So again, if you're using the manual inputs on the app, or you're using manual inputs into the software, do not baseline at the gauge. If you happen to baseline at the gauge and you remembered this webinar, input 0 in for your inputs on the app and the software, so it's just because you're inputting 0 to negate what you've already baselined for. This could be a QA issue, so we may be looking for submittals of pictures of your gauge if you choose either of the manual options. We found, especially on those windy days, that, man, this baseline can have a significant difference in your results. You can imagine if you're baselining, 10 Pascal, what kind of impact that could have. So again, we recommend using the automated blower door software. By the time you take all the baselines and you plug all the inputs into your phone or your tablet, it really is quicker and easier just to use that automated software. Just again, a friendly reminder, we'll be announcing these requirements to submit the blower door software reports sometime this summer. So it'd be best to go ahead and try it out, work on testing with these options and see what works best for you. So number 6 common mistake is related to the date field and rim rates. Ironically, in our QA section here of the webinar, we did miscount. I said 5, but we've got 6. This was actually recently brought to our attention in our audit from RESNET, and I had to squeeze it in here. The rating date field is very important input for our reporting. Used in RESNET's registry, and it drives reporting and meeting our annual QA requirements. So if you submit a rating in 2014 with a rating date of 2013, technically speaking, that's 2013 QA, and so that there was some discrepancies in some of our reporting with RESNET, and we were audited recently from RESNET. You guys probably remember all the questions about gauge calibration and all of that. This was also another item that they focused on. So pay close attention. We think a couple of the things are just mistakes, of course, but take care when you're doing ratings for projected ratings and you put a date in there and don't change it. So if you did a projected rating in 2012 and you forgot to change it at your confirmed rating, that's something that we don't always catch. We will be on the lookout, but it helps when you all also are paying attention to those kind of details as well. I just recommend leaving that blank. Just leave the date blank there until the rating's confirmed. You don't need a date in there for your template files, so might as well just leave it blank. One less input you got to worry about. If it's a late submittal, like you did a rating and you were waiting on checklists from HVAC contractor or your builder, and you did a rating in the previous year, and then you submit that, it's best to just make the date that you submit that rating. For quality assurance purposes, for reporting to RESNET and all of those things, it's best just to have that in the same year that you submit the rating. And technically, it's not an official rating until it gets registered in the registry anyways. So best just to use the date that you submit that. So we have another poll question here, actually a few in a row, and then I'll be handing the presentation over to our CEO, Steve Byers. Good. Looks like we're pretty close to 50-50 on using the adjustments in the software or not. So, there's looks like they're be about half of you we'll have to work with, and we're happy to discuss these options with you. If you have questions about the different options and what would work best for your process, we'd be happy to have that conversation. We've got another poll here. It's going to pop up in just a second. So this one's related. We're just trying to get a feel for what Energy Star is like, what the demand is like in your market. As we suspected, looks like almost the majority of us say Energy Star is down. Surprisingly, about 38% of us say it's neutral, so that's good to hear. And a few of us have Energy Star demand is up. I wonder, I'd be curious to see what that demand would be. But yeah, thanks for your time there on the poll. I believe do we have one more? One more poll here.
Going to close that poll in a few seconds here. Here's our results.
So it looks like a majority of us have ratings only as the driver, meaning you're not doing code testing or Energy Star, you're just doing ratings for the informational purposes. At least that's what our intent was in that question. But a chunk of us are getting code testing and a smaller percentage with Energy Star. So that's good information to know. It looks like the marketing may be from RESNET maybe getting some steam here. All right. I'm going to hand over the presentation here to our CEO, Steve Byers.
Hi, everyone. I'm really glad to be here to talk to you today. I'm just going to take a couple minutes of your time. I've met a lot of you, and those of you I haven't met, I hope to meet you someday soon, perhaps in September at RaiderFest. First, not a business opportunity per se, more in the line of what you see there, an update. I do sit on the RESNET QA Working Group, and that's something that's top of mind for a lot of folks. And we're not allowed, in essence, to talk about the work that's going on inside the working group for sort of obvious reasons. But I can tell you, in terms of an update, that we have been steadily marching through comments that people have submitted to the group, exploring all the different options and models that people have submitted, which run the gamut from status quo to fairly radical changes in the way that the industry is structured. And all I can tell you is that we know that there will be changes, and I wish I could tell you more, but soon enough. We're on a fairly aggressive timeline, and RESNET has been getting some messaging out about progress being made. You can expect to see more of that very soon. So moving on to more business opportunities that we see, one thing that we've been working on a lot and with some different partners in terms of potential trainings that we hope to have out relatively soon and partnering opportunities with us, all revolve around multifamily work. So most of us best of my knowledge, are engaged in some way, shape, or form in multifamily work now. Now, what is that? I use the term broadly on purpose because we've got everything, sort of the galaxy of opportunities there with Energy Star, high rise, LEED for homes, of course, LEED mid-rise, enterprise green communities, etc. With Energy Star high-rise and LEED mid-rise, both of those programs require 90.1 modeling, but of course still have field testing and inspection done by raters. So for those of you who don't know, we have via Carissa Sawyer, who many of you do know, who is a professional engineer, has gotten her skill set up to where we can handle 90.1 modeling now. So if you don't have that capacity in-house and you see opportunities for projects out there, we'd love to talk to you about partnering on those. And along the same line, relatively soon we'll also have not a training on 90.1 because that's a whole other kettle of fish, but an introduction to 90.1 that's more, if you're a rater who's not going to probably become competent at 90.1, or you just have an interest in knowing more about it, we're going to have a sort of intro to 90.1 training coming out pretty soon. The last thing I'll mention right now is, for those of you who don't know, and most of you probably do, Energy Logic continues to have the energy use guarantee available for you to use as a value add in working with your builder clients. Of course, you can reach out and touch base with Glenn on the use of the energy use guarantee. We've seen slight uptick in interest and use of that. So that's, again, something to explore in your working with your clients as another value add. Some of you last year heard a couple of folks, Ari and Graham from Ibicus, sort of throwing out some ideas about the work that Ibicus does around quality assurance and how that might play with those in the HERS community, and that work has continued, and we'll be doing more. We'll be presenting more of that at RaterFest, but I can tell you that we've continued on that path, and I don't have an exact timeline, but hopefully around the first of the year we'll be starting to entertain where that can go with raters. So that will wrap up my comments now, and I know that we're going to move into Q&A section now. So I'll give it back to Glenn.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. So now we're going to open up to questions here. You can type your question in the chat box, and we'll answer those questions.
Or alternatively, you can use the raise your hand function, and we can take you off of mute.
So we have a question here. Can you go over the field QA again for Energy Star, which is new? Yeah, the field QA for Energy Star works much like RESNET QA. So as soon as you do an Energy Star rating, then you fall into our quality assurance program. And we're required to do quality assurance on Energy Star homes for you as a rater. So works very similar. The format is very similar to RESNET, except it's just a different pool of ratings that we would be required to do Energy Star QA on. We can double up, so if we do Energy Star QA, that can count as RESNET QA. So it's something we try to align when we're doing our quality assurance, when we're there to visit you. We'll try to align that to make it as most cost-effective as possible. But there is a low-volume exemption for those raters who do less than 100 ratings, but it still poses the same hurdles in trying to schedule your very next ENERGY STAR home. So if it was a problem before, it's probably something we should address to make sure that we get access to do ENERGY STAR QA. And ultimately, that's the obligation to, by participating in an ENERGY STAR program, to require that QA.
Glenn, let me add to that briefly. There's a couple of additional things that we'll do, your quality assurance designee will do in the field, and those are the same additional diagnostics that you're going to have to do as the rater. So if you're measuring room pressures or testing flows on exhaust fans, etc., those diagnostic tests are going to have to be replicated by your quality assurance designee in field.
We have someone asking, how do you can you talk a little bit more about the energy use guarantee? How do we participate in that? There's a separate agreement. It's like a separate program, like you'd have agreement with ENERGY STAR. You'd have an agreement with Energy Logic to use the energy use guarantee. In a nutshell, there are separate fees associated with that you can either pass along to your builder, but those are fees that would cover the quality assurance and essentially cover if there's any claims on the rebates. Energy Logic covers the claims, and so we charge a fee to be able to cover any claims that could be made.
Yeah, so briefly, Energy Logic is using that energy use guarantee and your work on the ratings, and Energy Logic is guaranteeing the heating and cooling costs, or excuse me, the heating and cooling usage for the homeowner that buys that home. And that's something that your builder clients could use to help them sell homes. And obviously, if you find something that involves your work that helps your builder sell homes, then that obviously gets you more deeply entrenched with your builder and gives you a value add that perhaps the other raters in your market cannot offer. That's the whole reason we hatched this in the first place for ourselves, is just to make sure that we remain competitive in our own market and give our builder clients one more reason to stick with us. So again, Energy Logic would be assuming the risk if somebody's usage goes over that which is predicted. And because we're assuming that risk, then there's a fee involved in that to help us cover the cost of claims.
We've got a question here, whether there's any movement towards video QA with RESNET, and I think I'm going to pass that on to Steve.
Yeah, I sit on the QA committee, and what I can tell you is that a subgroup has been formed. I believe that Greg Nahn from Wisconsin Energy Conservation Center is leading that group, and it's to explore, I don't know where he is that I'm not on that working group, but it's to explore the use of both video and further photo documentation, what kind of criteria and standards need to be set up around that to enable that. That's what's happening, so it's relatively new. It's not a whole lot done yet as far as I know.
I think there were a couple of people who shared their experience in the blower door software tools. One of our rater partners here emails the actual file from his mobile device to the computer, so that it is that option to send the tech type file instead of the report. And then he completes the other inputs back at his computer, and then that allows you to kind of bridge that gap. So that's great feedback. Thank you, Peter Stone, for sharing that. He also notes that you need a driver on the computer, and that presented some problems for him at times. So something to consider there. I'll make a note here and take a look at it and report what we find.
I'm guessing that driver is likely to be from the the serial to USB cable. Some of those require drivers and some of those don't. So it kind of depends on which one of those you've purchased. If there's something else that requires a driver, Peter, besides the cable, maybe you can post a comment there to that effect.
We also had a comment here that some of the newer gauges have a USB, micro USB connection. That's a good point. What I showed there on my screen was kind of the mid-level gauge, I guess is what you'd call it. It does have the old serial ports. But the newer gauges, you would not go out and purchase that serial cord. You would purchase, I believe it's a micro USB to USB connection. If you have questions about it, you might go to your local electronics store, take your gauge, and they'll be able to show you and find what connections you need. Just tell them you need that to communicate with your computer, and they can get you straightened out there. But thanks for all the suggestions. I appreciate that. Another one of our raters noted that the software requires an altitude input, and that he recommends the Get Altitude app, which will provide the altitude for your area. I think it's one of those things to consider in your process. I don't know that you necessarily need an app unless you find major altitude fluctuations, like in the mountains. But if you're relatively flat by, I think, a couple thousand feet, I think the RESNET standard allows something like 2,000 feet fluctuation. So not something to be too concerned about unless you're up in the higher altitudes. There's a couple questions coming in. I'll need to do some research on those. I don't know an answer off the top of my head, but they're great questions. I assure you I will get back with you on those. There is a log of all the questions, and we'll make sure we get answers for you.
Yeah, if there's anything we didn't cover, if you posted a question, it's likely, if we don't cover it here live, it's likely that it's something that's going to require a little bit of research on our part. What we'll commit to doing is we'll post that question in the Partner Center along with our answers. And that way there'll be a thread there, searchable for anybody else that has the same question down the road.